Hello, what is going on YouTube? I'm kind of recording this video under weird circumstances. I have to leave for class here in like 30 something minutes and I'm just not recording, so hopefully I can get it out to you guys by like a little before like 1:30, I would say. But we have the 2018 art supernatural horror film directed by Luca Guadagnino, screenplay by David Kajganik. It is in French. It's got Tilda Swinton in there. It's got Dakota Johnson. It's got Mia Goth. It's got some decent actresses in the movie. This is pretty much an all-female film, I think. So that's interesting. Let's get into the plot, critical reception. You know the deal. So during the German autumn of 1977, Susie Banyan, an American from a Mennonite family in Ohio, is admitted at the Marcos Dance Academy in West Berlin. She wants to be a dancer, obviously. The academy is railing from the disappearance of a student, Patricia Hingel, who vanished after telling her psychotherapist, Joseph Klemperer, that the academy is controlled by a coven of witches. She feels like she's being kind of like manipulated by the academy, and we'll find out later on in the story that she's probably not all the way wrong there, you know. So yeah, in the beginning of the film, she went to Klemperer. That's what you see at the beginning of the movie, blah, blah, blah. Journals left by Patricia and Klemperer's office detail the three mothers, a trio of witches who predate Christianity. Mater Suspiriorum, which is why the film's called Suspiria, Mater Tenebrarum, and Mater Lacrimarum. I'm not really sure what the fuck this shit means, but yeah. Klemperer, initially dismissive of Patricia's claims, becomes suspicious of the academy after her disappearance. Like, where the hell did she go? There's no way out of nowhere this girl just boom, up and vanishes. I think this video is going to be a little short too because I'm kind of rushing, so I apologize for that. During rehearsal, a Soviet student, Olga, becomes indignant with the lead choreographer, Madame Blanc, and storms out of the studio. And if you revolt against these people, then you kind of realize that there's a lot coming to you. It's not going to be fun, you know. Olga attempts to leave, but finds herself trapped alone in a room lined with mirrors. Blanc, meanwhile, resumes the rehearsal, during which Susie performs an aggressive dance. Her movements begin physically inflicting Olga, ravaging her body and damaging her organs and bones. And there is a lot of gore in this movie, I can't lie. It's a pretty disturbing film. This is not for the faint of heart. This isn't for the light-hearted. This isn't for the softer. I'm not going to say you're soft is a bad thing, but like if you're sensitive, I would not watch this film. I mean, it's pretty fucked up. It's pretty graphic. It's pretty just disturbing. Like some of the imagery, the noises, all that stuff is just, I don't know. It definitely should be the highest rated R. This is probably one of the gorier movies I've seen on this channel. Yeah, like as Susie's starting to dance, she's literally like her body's just getting fucking destroyed, and this is when you realize there's something wrong with this academy. Several of the academy's matrons drag Olga's mangled body away with large hooks, so no one finds her. Later, the matrons hold an informal election for who is to serve as the coven's new leader. The vote is between Madame Blanc and Mother Marcos, an aged and grossly disfigured witch who has long controlled the coven, and for whom the award academy is named. Marcos wants the popular vote, so she's the ruler. The coven, they have this super, like, it's not, I don't know if it's like demonic, I get the super evil, like cultish thing going on in the background of the dance academy. So they meet up, they they pretty much elect a ruler of this underworld, I guess you could call it, and then yeah, that's how that goes. Afterwards, Miss Griffith, the most sheepish of the matrons, commits suicide. She seems like a very fucking weird character the second you kind of get introduced to her, and she literally just up and kills herself. Like, no, not sure why that happened, but it is what it is. So Susie befriends her classmate Sarah, played by Mia Goth, and quickly climbs the ranks as Blanc's protege. She is appointed the lead of the Academy's upcoming piece, Volk, which they've been working on for years, and she pretty much just comes into this academy and out of nowhere she gets this lead role. She must be really good at dancing, I guess, or they signed some contracts. There's something deeper than that, I guess. Meanwhile, Sarah grows suspicious of the matrons after her meeting with Klemperer and uncovers clandestine hallways in the building where she discovers esoteric relics, which is like, I'm not really sure what any of that means, but I guess that's what they refer to it as. Klimper attends the public performance of Volk, so like somewhat early in the film is where like what you would expect to be the climax is them performing this piece that they've been preparing for, but there's a lot more after this, you know. So Klimper decides to show up and see if there's something fishy. Immediately prior, Sarah explores a passageway leading into catacombs where she finds a disfigured Patricia. This is where she has disappeared to. The matrons pretty much took her away and threw her into the coven. So, yeah. Sarah attempts to flee, but the matrons manifest holes in the floor that cause her to fall and fracture her leg. Literally bones popping out of her leg. It is disgusting. Like I said, this is not for super sensitive people. You kind of have to have a bit of a gut to watch this to avoid throwing up, because it's gross, I will say. The performance begins without her, but she emerges midway through the piece, dancing her part with robotic precision on a broken leg. Her eyes have changed from brown to blue, and Susie's blue to brown, so that's kind of like a little interesting thing, I guess. That must signify something. The dance ends abruptly when Sarah collapses in pain, and the concert watchers are like, well, what the fuck just happened? Like, did you guys know this girl had this problem? As Klimper exits, she sees Sarah's changed eyes and leaves unnerved. He realizes something fucking happened to this girl. Like, she didn't just collapse out of nowhere. She didn't just have a medical emergency. He sees some signs that this dance academy is very fucked up, you know. Blank subsequently chastises Susie for intervening in the matron's attempt to manipulate Sarah's body. So I guess like telepathically she like gets in the way of this. I mean, she is friends with this Sarah girl. So yeah. The next day, Susie attends a celebratory dinner with the matrons. This seems like a cultish thing as well. Meanwhile, Klimper encounters Ank, his presumed deceased wife, at his dacha in East Germany, and there's so much going on. There's a lot of stuff interwoven here, and I'm not really sure how to feel about that. I feel like this movie doesn't seem super focused on a single thing. I don't know. She tells him she faked her death after fleeing the Nazis and starting a new life in England, so that's another really... I mean, the Nazi crap happened like 30 years before this film, just to give you guys kind of an idea. They walk together, passing through a security checkpoint into West Berlin without being noticed. Klimper realizes the two have arrived at the Marcos Academy. Before his eyes, he realizes Ank is in fact Miss Holler, one of the matrons, and that he has been lured there to bear witness to an impending witches' Sabbath. And it's like this really fucked up, really weird, like, ritual. Oh my god, it's disturbing. This is the most disturbing part of the film, what I'm about to mention here. So, after the dinner, Susie returns to the academy and is led to a chamber where Blanc and the other matrons await with an incapacitated Klimper. Pretty much getting punished for like being nosy and getting just this extreme punishment. Overlooking the scene is Mother Marcos. Susie is to be her new vessel, I guess. I don't know what that fucking means, but yeah. Susie renounces her own mother, who simultaneously succumbs on her deathbed in Ohio. So again, shit is just going on left and right. They're just throwing a bunch of shit into this film. It's really interesting. The matrons disembowel Sarah to begin the Sabbath, but Blanc senses something is wrong. Marcos nearly decapitates Blanc when she is resistant to proceed. If you go against this academy, I'm telling you, there's going to be consequences, and that's kind of the theme, I guess. I don't know. As Blanc bleeds profusely, Susie reveals that she, not Marcos, is Mother Suspiriorum. She is there to claim the academy and eradicate Marcos and just take over this place. I guess that's her motives. I guess she's pretty much a fucking witch. I don't know. Susie summons death, killing Marcos and her most faithful matrons, sparing only those devoted to Blanc. And their portrayal of death is really interesting. You know, you usually see like the typical generic kind of Grim Reaper, but they have this really weird figure that goes around and just like makes everyone bleed to death and like their heads fucking explode and shit. Yeah. Obviously the editing is really shitty in this too. It didn't seem like they had a very high budget. Patricia, Olga, and Sarah, each physically ravaged, plead to die, which Susie grants them. They get to have a peaceful death, while the other people just fucking explode, I guess. So the following day, the Academy resumes operations as usual, like nothing fucking happened. Miss Vendegast discovers Blanc on the verge of death, but still alive. Meanwhile, Klimper, who is spared and now confined to his bed, is met by Susie at his home. She recounts to him the fate of Ank, who died at the Rissenstadt concentration camp during the war, obviously. Upon her touching him, he suffers a violent seizure that erases his memories, and Susie leaves. Susie stares approvingly at something outside the academy. So, yeah, obviously something went right. But yeah, let's get into the critical response because, wow, this is a controversial movie. Like I said, this was a super controversial movie, and by the way, this movie did terrible in the box office. But at least there was a lot to say about it. I mean, polarizing served as too tame a word to describe the reactions to this film. I mean, I don't know. Suspiria attacks heady themes with garish vigor, offering a viewing experience that's daringly confrontational, and definitely not for everyone. I mean, there were certain critics and stuff that liked this movie for sure. Guadagnino, who has said he wanted to remake Suspiria since he first saw it more than 30 years ago, signals both his reverence and his seriousness by departing from it in every way imaginable, visually, sonically, dramatically, emotionally, and yes, this movie is a remake. There was an original one a while ago. It was an old-ass movie, I think. I mean, it's a powerful and dread-inducing experience, even before it reveals itself to be not just an art house exploration of horror aesthetic. There's more than that. You can't really define this film. It's kind of like David Cronenberg, like that kind of body horror. It took the body horror of the original to an unsightly new level. If the blood runs pretty in the old Suspiria, it's urine here that trickles down the legs of a painfully contorted ballerina. It kind of, like the visual elements kind of remind you of like The Exorcist. It's a gory but imperiously lofty matriarchal horror film. The film would have benefited from more shocks for sure, more kind of plot twist maybe in there from the original. It's more like a Lovecraftian finale. I mean, what it mostly leaves behind is an accurate taste of having experienced something stylish but not really fulfilling all the way. The reimagining of witchcraft is boldly absurd, and by the time the phantasmagorical finale arrives, you are flooded with blood and viscera, yes, but also something even more unsettling. A sudden onrush of feeling, a deep, overpowering melancholy. It's the most startling of the movie's transfigurations, and it returns us to the primordial theme of motherhood, I guess. Motherhood, I guess, was like the whole theme of the film. I guess that makes sense. There's a lot to say. I don't know how much I want to keep talking about it. Yeah, just read reviews on this if you want. The first time I saw this movie, I came out pretty much covered in gore and confounded by the surfeit of stories. Can a splash be so big that it drowns the senses? How does such a film cohere? I feel like if you rewatch it, you kind of follow the flow and you find that what it led to was not terror or disgust, but kind of an unexpected sadness. The ending is pretty sad in a way, I guess. Suspiria is a film of rare and unfettered madness, and it leaves behind a scalding message that's written in pain and blood. The future will be a nightmare if we can't take responsibility for the past. The cinematography was great. I mean, there wasn't a whole lot of cohesion in the film, though. Suspiria is a largely befuddling accumulation of shots and sounds that never coalesce. It's kind of drawn out. I mean, it's 2.5 hours long, too many discursive shifts to build much tension. It's more an MA thesis than a remake, determinedly upscale and upper middle brow, with indigestible new layers of historical meaning added to the film. The pacing and runtime, not great. So as the first hour Suspiria grinds into the second and beyond, the movie runs over 2.5 hours. It grows even more distended and yet more hollow. Unlike Argento, who seemed content to deliver a nastily updated fairy tale in 90 or so minutes, Guadagnino continues casting about for meaning, which perhaps explains why he keeps adding more stuff, more mayhem, more dances, more storylines. I mean, it's cool. I mean, I guess it can be cool for being a slow burner. I don't know. Is it better than the original? That's a conversation that people can have. The film's a profoundly and often punishing experience. Simply keeping up with the plot, despite its pokey pace, is kind of exhausting. I mean, there are definitely some pretty boring moments in this film. This film's an interesting intellectual exercise, too ambitious to be ignored, yet too overbearing to be enjoyed. Guadagnino's reach far exceeds his grasp. To watch him excavate evil to find a sorrowful truth is something you don't really want to miss. I mean, I feel like this is a movie kind of essential to the horror genre. It's not necessarily a great movie, even a good movie for that matter, but it is what it is. I mean, I feel like I was kind of too confused to really understand the ending. Do I want to rewatch this? Probably not. It's 2.5 hours. I'm not a big fan of long movies. Sure, I can be entertained as long as possible. That's fine by me, but I gotta end this video. That wasn't even all the reviews. This movie was pretty controversial. I mean, hella people were talking about it, so I'm out. I gotta get this shit posted so I can go to class. Yada, yada, yada. I'm out.